Today we're going to go in depth on everything Pivot Hunter. So, as we know, as of more or not recently, I've been also focusing on gold. Gold and NQ, right? Gold and NQ. Now, we'll talk about one in general, but I want to point this out first. This is very, very important. You will not need to change any of the settings. You will not need to change any of the settings at any point in time. You don't need to turn things on or off or anything. Now, I personally, there's one exception actually. There's one exception. Backtest mode. I like to do backtest mode because what it does is it gets to show you previous signals, right? I like to see previous signals. So I will put backtest mode on, but that's it. Everything else, I just leave how it is. I do like to make some things, larger. I'll change the signal sizes to large, whatever to large. I change my blue line, my dotted lines to blue. But besides that, I leave everything how it is. Yeah, Owen did push a new update for gold, which we'll talk about momentarily. So let's do this. We're going to focus first on NQ, or I'll go on MNQ, because I think that'll be for most of you guys, and then we'll go into gold. So what exactly is this indicator? Well, it's a Pivot Hunter. It's a Pivot Hunter Pro. It's an indicator that I came up with. Well, I didn't come up with the indicator, but I came up with a strategy, right? And it all started here. Let's look at market open Friday, start new. So as a new trader, not even as a new trader, but just as a trader in general, I learned the Max way, right? And I was very successful with it. And I wanted to find a way to tighten up my trading, add a little bit of more. Something that Max always pushed out to myself and all his other students is this is an individual career. And what you want to end up doing is kind of at some point in time, finding what works for you and deciding whether or not you want to stick with that, or if you ever come up with something else, you would add something to it, right? So I'm a Mastermind student. I ended up developing the Pivot Hunter strategy. Javi is a Mastermind student. He ended up developing the Quantum strategy. Jamie is a Mastermind student. She has her gold strategies, right? And so we still take what we learned from Max, and then we kind of implement it and move it into our own strategies in the way that works for us. So for me, there was a certain point in time when I was playing certain areas of interest and when I was trading, and I started to notice over and over again these big peaks, certain areas that were going on, right? And I started to notice, the market all of a sudden would go and do these pump ups or pump downs, and it would just stop. I was trying to think, well, why was that happening? Well, we got to remember, we are just the retail traders, and we're actually not even really trading in the market, right? Everything we do is just simulated. We have no impact on the market, right? If there was all of us right now clicked buy and sell, let's say the market was open, nothing would happen to the market, not a fraction, because we are all simulated. Now the hedge funds, the institutional traders, the big money people, they move the market, right? So when we start to look at these levels, we start to pay attention to it, right? The same reason we have orb or certain other strategies, previous day highs, previous day lows, all this stuff. We start to pay attention, well, why is that happening? Well, the institutional traders, the hedge funds, they probably have a large amount of buy orders here, right? It's probably why the market won't continue to go down. Or in this situation, a lot of sell orders. So I started to pay attention to these levels, right? And I started to pay attention and seeing, okay, well, what works, what doesn't work? And as I started to see these levels, I thought one or two things are going to happen. One, we're going to have a strong rejection off of it. Or two, if there's a good enough break, there's a good enough continuation. Now, I'm not going to go fully in depth on what the exact logic and everything I have involved in it, because that's secret sauce. And you don't need to understand how I developed it. And Owen's not going to give you the coding for it, so don't ask, right? All that matters is that we have an indicator that processes and builds certain key levels based off of pivots and certain qualifications that decide, okay, this meets the requirements to build a level. Right? So these levels we're building, and then at a certain point in time, they would either have good rejections in the general area, or with a good enough break and continuation, there would be a solid move. So I started paying attention to that, and I started developing different areas of interest and looking and determining what's a good enough break, what's a good enough continuation. And as I was drawing out these levels and I was playing off of them, and it was a pain in the ass because at some point in time, and some of my original students know this, is I was sitting here and I was having to constantly draw out levels over and over again and then delete and then determine what's a good qualification and doing all the stuff. And then fortunately, boy genius Owen tuned in, said, hey, I can take your mind, put it onto an indicator. So you don't have to fucking keep drawing and deleting these lines, right? Man genius, right? Man genius. And so he was like, yo, your strategy's dope. Instead of you constantly drawing the lines and finding the proper breakouts and the qualifications, he's like, why don't I just set up an indicator for you? So Owen and I spent lots and lots of time building this indicator, and here we are, right? We did lots and lots of back testing, and we started to tighten it up and tighten it up. But the problem is that the indicator worked really well for somebody who understood why these levels and everything was forming. But it doesn't help the general population, you guys. So I thought to myself, okay, Owen and I sat down, we said, all right, how do we make this better and better and better? So first and foremost, we wanted to have the levels form. Got it, right? Why do the levels form? Again, don't worry about that, they form. Right? We're going to have the numbers set up for people to understand. Got it. Now, what is a general break level consideration? Well, we want to have it based off of the average size candle, something like an ATR, right? Got it. So we'll pump on ATR. We'll throw ATR on there. Okay. So then we had something like this show up where there was a reasonable break. Okay. So now we got a break. That's a good break. Now we have a signal. Great. So now I started to say, okay, guys, you see the signal, you see a strong continuation, you get in. Well, the problem was people were struggling to find out what's an exact continuation. Now you got to understand, I have my sauce. I have certain things that I don't want to share with all this stuff. And I said, at this point in time, I've got to spread the word. I want people to understand how pivot works, right? It's one of the best indicators out there. So Owen and I got together and said, you know what? Screw it. We're going to show exactly what's a potential good entry. So now we've implemented these dotted lines, right? So now, not only do we have a signal, we have the dotted lines, which is a potential entry. So let's talk about what we see right here. First and foremost, let's go back to the settings real quick. I have mine blue, just like to have it stick out. Line colors, green, red, blue. Some people are like, why don't you have them flip the other way? I could, it doesn't really fucking matter, right? You could have them flipped around, green, bullish, bearish, fine, right? Same thing. It's all the same relatively. So when we get a decent break of one of these levels, right? And not every time does it break will it signal, right? Because I want a good break. I am a breakout momentum trader. Breakout momentum trader. I have no problem catching it midway in the move, right? Now the signals kind of give you an eye saying, hey, pay attention. Something's going on here. You do not enter on the signal candles, ever. It is always the continuation, right? Because what we fall for, more often than not, is a fake breakout. So what we have now is we have a signal. Perfect. Now we want to see a strong continuation. So in this example, we had a strong continuation. However, it hasn't met my qualifications for a continuation yet. Now I want to point this out, and I cannot stress this enough. Do not put a limit order on these dotted lines. Do not put a limit order on these dotted lines. More often than not, my entry criteria is so fucking precise that it will literally tap these dotted lines, flip and reverse. This is how precise my entry point is. So then you're like, well, Logan, I thought that's where we're entering. Yes and no. The dotted lines gives you a general idea of where a potential good entry is. But remember, I am a breakout momentum trader. So what I want to see is a print through past these dotted lines. I want to see a candle rip through these lines. Now we got to remember Friday was incredibly volatile. I mean, the average candle size was 34. That's insane, right? This is what ATR is. In case you guys didn't know, average true range, right? Average true range basically means the average size of a candle based off of a certain amount of candles, the average of them, right? So what we want to see is a print through. Friday was pretty nuts, but there's a print through, right? Now, I want to say this over and over again, guys. Do not ask me, what should my top loss, what should my TP be, what should my contracts be, all that stuff. That has nothing to do with the Pivot Hunter. That is your own personal risk, your own risk management, right? A lot of people go about this different ways, right? You can set your stop loss and TP however you want. Do your own little back testing, what works for you. I don't go for massive moves, but what I do pay attention to is the ATR. You got to think, right? ATR for normal market situations. And let's go back to a normal day, not Friday. Let's go back to Thursday, I guess. Let's go to, well, not even Thursday, let's go to Wednesday. Normal market conditions is anywhere between 7 to about 25. Average candle size is anywhere between 7 to 25. This is normal market conditions. Candles are normal size. It's going to be green when it's between 7 and around 25. Even above 25, it might be. Actually, Owen, I just thought of a new update. We should push this out. If we push above 25, let's change the color. Let's change the color if we can do that. Cool? No problemo. Perfect. Even better. We're constantly updating, guys. This is what's so great about our indicators and the businesses that we got going on here is we're constantly improving it, constantly making it better for you guys. Just thought of that. Once it pops above 25, we're going to do something like we got red, we got green. Let's do, I don't know, what color are you guys thinking? Yellow, caution. All right, I like yellow. Yellow's reasonable. Let's do yellow. That makes sense, right? Because yellow, why are these candles highlighted in yellow? Well, when a candle's highlighted in yellow, it means there's a lot of volume involved. So I think this is a great idea. Perfect. So when we see it's red, that means it's low volume. So when you're thinking about a TP and a stop loss, you're not going to do something crazy, right? You're going to go for a smaller TP, smaller stop loss, maybe increase your size. When it's green, you're going to go for standard market conditions, normal TP, normal stop loss. When it's extreme, 25 and above, like we saw Friday, I think it got up to 40, 50, it's going to be yellow, saying, hey, be aware there's a lot of volume. Just like these candles, all right? Saying, hey, there's a lot of volume, okay? Now, the rules are going to be a little bit different with gold. Gold, 99% of the time, it's going to be red. For gold, normal market conditions are anywhere between 1.1 to about 4.5. Now, Friday, we saw it hit 10, which is insane. Double market conditions, incredible volatility. Now, with the algorithm and the logic, it's difficult to have it set for NQ and for gold and the numbers to adjust. You guys got to also understand, what is so great about the Pivot Hunter? I have students of mine who use the Pivot Hunter on options, CFDs, Forex, multiple different ways that you can use this indicator. So the general standpoint for us to constantly change the colors across the board, it'll be too difficult. However, NQ, I can confidently say 99% of us trade. So we're just going to stick to the guidelines there for NQ. Don't ask us to change everything, guys, for gold. It's not going to happen. Gold is fun. Gold is great. But NQ is our baby. It's our primary. It's our focus. Okay? So gold, anything around 1 and under is considered low volume. 1.1 to about 4.5, normal volume. Once we pass 4.5, that's large volume. Okay? Let's get back to NQ. So, again, we get these levels formed. Now, if you guys pay attention enough and you're watching, these levels only hold their value for about an hour or so. The reason for that is with enough studying and backtesting. You guys got to understand, I personally have spent hundreds and hundreds of hours building this strategy. Hundreds and hundreds of hours. Backtesting, front testing, forcing myself to lose a lot of money on props, to live trade it and test it out to get something so concrete and successful. And then Owen had to listen to me for hours and hours and hours and hours telling him how I want things back and forth as well. Right? And we had to go and fix it and everything. So these levels only hold their value for about an hour. I'm a scalper. I've always been a scalper. I'm always going to be a scalper. I have looked into swing trading on this. Some people like using it on the 5-minute timeline. But generally speaking, I always focus on the 1 minute. Always focus on the 1 minute 90% of the time. We'll talk about when we do other timelines. 90% of the time. So after an hour, these levels will disappear, right? And whether a new one will form. Usually, 90% of the time, there should always be a minimum of 2. Break, not a good continuation. So what happens here? Generally speaking, if I see, in this example, a bullish candle with a signal, next candle closes red, or if it's bearish, closes bullish, and it's showing bearish incentive or bullish incentive depending on our direction, no trade. There is no opportunity. We are breakout traders. Again, I want to see a strong continuation. So what will usually happen is that level will disappear. Now there is no trade. What we want to see, and again, this one did pop up, but what we want to see is a strong move and a strong continuation. Now we have made a recent update where if we see some type of doji or something that's showing like, hey, let's say it's a bearish candle and the next one is like, it's bullish, but it's showing failed bullish. And what I mean by that is one, either a doji or something like, let's say, something like this, right? Yes, it's a bullish candle, but it's a bullish, it's a hammer, right? It's showing incentivization that, hey, we're probably still going down, okay? So let's just scroll through here. Let's see if we can get some good trade setups so I can kind of give you guys an example of what we're looking for. Break, not set up yet. Let's wait for another one. Let's wait for another one. Here we go. Okay, so here's a good example, right? Break, signal, level forms, didn't print through yet. So now we just wait. It's still bearish, so there's still potential there. Boom, printed through. Now at any point in time, if you were to jump in here, let's say you jumped in at 20, it's a 20-point trade. 20-point trade, not a bad move. Say you're still in it, boom, 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 massive movement. That's a really big trade. Now I want to point something out to you guys. The Pivot Hunter is not a 100% win rate. Nothing in this world is a 100% win rate. If this was a 100% win rate, none of you would know who I am because I would own an island right now. Okay, I want you guys to remember that. What is so great about the Pivot Hunter is the RR. The RR. Students and I have been trading Asia and London the last week. We're at probably, what would you guys say? We're at like a 70% win rate, I think. Probably give or take, around a 70% win rate. But here's what's funny. We're at a 70% win rate, but we're all up so big. For every loss, if you have solid risk management, for every loss you have, the average win is 2, 3, or 4 times that size. The RR is insane. In a lot of situations, the RR could be 1 to 6. I can sit here and I can watch and see how the candles are moving and say, hey, this doesn't look like it's going to continue. I'm not going to get in. But a bot will go by an exact number or percentage and say, hey, based off calculations, this is an entry point. A bot could lose. That is what is so insane about the Pivot Hunter. It's the RR. So when you guys are trading this and you're like, I took a loss, I took another loss, keep your head up, get your psychology right. That's why, by the way, I developed this indicator. You guys see me say it all the time. Wait, wait, wait. Because I'm waiting for that strong move, that continuation, the validation that that breakout is happening. And sure enough, we catch some bangers. Who cares if you lose? Statistically, which I've spent hundreds of hours of testing, the RR is insane on this. I've done it. Students have done it. The bot has done it. Owen has boiled his brain building it. I'm telling you guys, it's the RR. Stop focusing on the losses. Start focusing on the wins. And if you have the right risk management, you will become very profitable. This is the only indicator that I use, the only strategy that I use. I have shown proof of tens of thousands of dollars of payouts every single month just from this indicator. FFF alone last week, $40,000. $40,000 on FFF alone last week. I will show the payout this coming Tuesday, and you guys will see it. You guys will see the payout, right? Now they have consistency rules. Technically, I can only pull out $3,000, so it's still going to be about a $12,000 payout. And then 7 days later, I'll do another something. $3,000 per account, sorry. So it's going to be about anywhere between $12,000 to $13,000, all right? And this is just from this indicator. That's it. So let's look for some more setups. And look at this. You guys look here, right? It just teetered that line. This is why we say, wait. I want to see a strong print through. That was another good one. Look at this. Let's back that up a little bit. You guys see here? Signal. Didn't quite touch it yet. We're waiting. We're waiting. We're waiting. Boom. Print through. Now we get in, right? Get in at any point in time here. You would have been good. You would have hit at least, there was another 25-point trade, right? Even if you got in pretty late, 900 to 81, that's still 19 points. Even if you got in, 15 points. You got in super late, 15 points. Most important part of this indicator is patience. Exactly. Being patient, waiting for the trades to set up. Now, what I want to try and show you guys is what I consider an A++ setup. And let's see if we can get one. Let's just fast forward throughout the day, see what we can find. Well, that was a phenomenal, and here's another one. This is one of those patience trades, right? Again, break, has to get a print through here. Not yet, not yet. Boom, now we're in. Look at the RR on this trade alone. Look at the RR on this trade alone. Let's say you're just fucking crazy late and you get in all the way at the close, 97. This pulled up, let's say you got out here. You still got a 50-point trade. 50-point trade, right? And that's middle of lunch. Pretty sure we caught this trade. Pretty sure the students and I caught this trade. Middle of lunch, right? And if you're still in it, you might have even caught a little bit more after that. Now let's see if we can find an A++ trade. I'm just gonna fast forward. Nothing yet, nothing yet. All right, let's go back. Let's see here what we'll do. I want to show something here. Okay, this is what I want to show. This is a great example. Okay, this was a Trump tweet, right? So we obviously didn't expect this to happen. Actually, you know what? Let's show another good example. Let's find something here. 330. Let's see. Some of these trades are insane. Look at these lunch trades. The lunch trades have been phenomenal. Another good trade. Let's see if here's a good example. Nope, not a good example. Not a good example. Perfect. Okay. If you guys, this is a little trick with the Pivot Hunter. Market open, the Globex open, which the students and I were kind of looking into. Market open, 9:30, right? 9:30 market open. Globex open, which is when the whole market opens, which will happen in an hour. And right before major economic news, what we know, there's going to be potentially a giant candle. It's going to look something like this. Now, obviously, most of us didn't trade this candle, but it's just an example. Giant candle. Now, if you guys remember, per our rules, we need to see break continuation for a potential entry, right? We need to see the signal. We wait for the continuation past the dotted line, right? However, if you know at market open, Globex open, or major economic news, I'm going to have a giant candle, what I'll do, I'll switch to the 30-second time frame. So now, look where my entry is here. Now I would have been able to enter around here at 80. I enter, if I'm looking at the 30-second time frame, I would have entered at 80, and that's just an exaggeration. You know, I would assume maybe I wouldn't miss out on 20 points, but let's just say the market's moving fast. I get in at 80. This is if you're looking at the 30-second time frame. For market open, Globex open, major economic news. Now, if you were just looking at the 1-minute time frame, you wouldn't have entered yet. Still wouldn't, you maybe would have entered here. Let's say you entered here. Because you looked at the 30-second time frame, you got in 53 points earlier. That's fucking huge. 53 points earlier because you looked at the 30-second time frame for market open, Globex, or major economic news. Pretty cool, right? Now, some of you are thinking, well, Logan, I don't have the 30-second time frame. I don't have premium. You don't need it. You could do this. Leave it on the 1-minute time frame. You see this signal, go on Tradeovate. Your Tradeovate will have a 30-second time frame. So what it'll show is you'll see a 1-minute candle, but when you see a signal, right, on Tradeovate, it's going to close 30 seconds earlier. It's going to close around here. Then you're going to see a strong enough continuation, and then you can enter on Tradeovate. Now you're good. So you don't need premium, right? It's just, it'll make it a little bit easier, but you can still use Tradeovate to get your entries earlier, market open, Globex, or news. Pretty fire, right? 30 seconds time frame. Now I want to remind you guys this. Only use the 30-second time frame for the first 2 minutes. First 2 minutes of those market open, Globex open, and major economic news. The longer you stay on a shorter time frame, the longer it tends to have you get into trades a little bit earlier. I cannot stress this enough. I would rather get in late to a trade than get in early. I would rather get in late to a trade than get in early. How many times have you guys heard me? Javi gets into a trade, I'm not convinced yet. Now, Javi's also a scalper, so Javi shoots for like 5 to 10 points. I shoot for much larger than that. But you guys hear it a lot of times where I'm like, nope, not yet, not yet, not yet. Javi's already in a trade, and now I'm getting into it. And then it rips down. And I get into these massive movements and massive trades. But on the 30-second time frame, do you get the dotted line on TradingView because you would miss that, wouldn't you? Yes, you wouldn't see the dotted line. But that's where you go back to the original rules, where when you see a strong enough continuation past it, so it would look like this. Once you see a strong enough continuation, you would have been good. Because if you look here, right, it's right there. So as soon as you saw the strong enough continuation, you would get in. So you'd be fine. Promise you, you would still be fine. Yes, you wouldn't have the dotted line. But as soon as you have a strong enough continuation, you're good, right? Do you set up alerts within the Pivot Hunter? Great question. So here's what's incredible about the Pivot Hunter, especially for a lot of the 9-to-5ers, people who have normal jobs. I don't want to stare at my charts all day. I've got shit to do. I have a normal life. So what I do, go to the alerts, create an alert. Oh, little delay there. Go to alerts, create an alert. You're going to have price, Pivot Hunter. Now we have a few different options here. Breakout alert. So now when there's a signal to the top side or bottom side, and there's a signal, you're going to hear ding, 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 ding. You're going to get an alert. So you can do your normal job. I hear the alert. I look, got it. Now I can decide, is it going to get past that dotted line or not? No, cool, back to work. Yes, all right, I'll enter the trade. Also an alert system that we have set up, high volume. Oh shit, it's popped above 25. Pay attention, volume's crazy, volatility's crazy. Let's pay attention here. Another good opportunity. And the ATR changes to green. So for normal low volume market conditions, all of a sudden the volume has increased. Pay attention to it. The reason why that is so key, especially for me, people that I coach, is how you decide on what your risk management is, right? Like I said, between low volume, normal market conditions, and high volume, you got to be smart with your risk management. I'll give you guys a little free chicken that I only coach about. Based off of the volume, this ATR, I always recommend you increase or decrease your contracts and you adjust your TPs and stop loss. Low volume, go for a smaller TP, increase cons. Average market, your average stuff. High volume, drop your cons, increase your TP, increase your stop loss. There's a little free chicken I'll give you for you guys that I only give for the students. Don't ask for the exact numbers. Not going to do that. I also want to remind you guys, if you guys only want one signal, you can do once. But if you want it to be continuous every time there's a signal, you guys will do once per bar. Cool? All right, now let's go back to me looking for an A+ setup for you guys. I think we got one actually right here that I might have skipped. This one right here? Oh, What is the red versus green in ATR? Red means low volume, green means normal market. And soon we're going to add yellow, which is going to mean high volume, very volatile. All right, let's look for an A++ trade. A lot of these trades have been phenomenal, but I want to show you guys why an A++ trade is A++. Here we go. Perfect. In this, oh, nope, that's not an A+ trade, right? That is not an A+ trade. And we'll explain that a little bit later on. Maybe this one is. Beautiful. A++ trade. Now, why is this A++? I'm still on the 30-second. Never mind. Nope, not an A+. Good catch. Good catch. Good catch. That is not an A++ trade. This might be, though. Perfect. Worked out anyway. Okay. So, why is this an A++ trade? I'm not saying I won't take trades on inside levels. I absolutely will. But what you need to remember is these levels tend to be strong resistance points, support and resistance, right? My concern is let's say I took a long here and I got into an entry around here. My concern is I might bounce off this level, right? And I won't hit my TP. But if I get a break to the top side or to the bottom side, well, there's no resistance. Got it. So I feel a little bit more confident in those outside and bottom trades. So this is already a good trade, but now it's highlighted in yellow. Yellow means volume. So now I got a signal candle yellow, a signal continuation yellow. That is an A++ trade. Not only do we have a lot of volume going down, we have a lot of volume in the continuation, and we have no areas below. So we have a strong potential, massive, massive move, right? If you were to jump in past the signal, again, let's say we got in super late, 24,794, probably got out around here, 70-point trade. 70-point trade. For a lot of you, that's at least a 1 to 4 hour multiple. It's pretty fucking big. 1 to 5 hour multiple in some cases. A++ trade. I got some people who only want to trade A++ trades. They will only wait for a break on a box on the bottom or the top, right? Have them both be yellow for an A++ trade. You're on the 30-second chart, got it. I've not tried the high volume alert yet, but it will only alert when in psych with all high volume candles. It'll alert once the ATR is above 25. So like right now, you'll get an alert. Quick question, can you set up alert for 30-second but trade on the 1 minute? I think so. Yeah, you should be able to. Yeah, 30-second chart, drop to the 1 minute. There you go. Look at that. Yeah, absolutely. 30-second is for open and news only, correct. Anyone else using the 5-minute lines to help with the 1 minute to determine A++ setups? Not a bad idea. I haven't gone that far in depth, Lago, but it's not a bad idea. Now, there's, some people like to look at other areas in market structure and the way that things work. Doesn't hurt. Wait for candle close after passing dotted lines. No. I was just showing you guys examples of getting in super late. I don't even recommend getting in when the candle closes. As soon as you see a good enough push past that level, those dotted lines, get in. As soon as you see a strong enough push, and I'm talking at least a minimum of a few points, break in past it with volume, go in that trade. Remember, don't put limit orders. We want to see a strong push through. You can choose what time frame you want to set the alert to go off on, correct. High volume alert when we see high volume counters after there hasn't been any volume. Yes, exactly. A strong print through. 30-second lets you get in early on a trade even during regular hours. No. Yes, correct. But you don't want to get in too early because the 30-second time frame will show potential setups that might be a little bit off. 1 minute is key. 1 minute has been really strong. I want to know the times when it doesn't work. What are the signs? There are no times it doesn't work. I've traded it during the morning, made money. Lunch, during money. Asia day, made money. I've back tested it and looked at the girls trading euro. Jamie uses a pivot hunter sometimes. She makes a shit ton of money. It works all the time. As long as you are patient and waiting for the strong print through, you're good. I've been testing the orb level as well for more confluence. Orb levels work as well because they tend to match up. How many setups do you have pivot hunter in a session on average? Multiple. A++, I'd say 1 to 2 per session. Not always during lunch. Asia, tends to be 1 or 2. Depends on how long you're going to trade. In the morning, 1, maybe 2 A++. So don't exactly look for it. Just touch the dotted lines. You want to see it push through the volume. Exactly. Have you tried it on the 2 minute? Would you say someone thinks the 1 minute time frame is too much than 2 minutes? A lot of different time frames work very well. Go back to the 1 minute. I want to try to show you guys scaling opportunities. See if I can find something here. Here we go. No, trying to clean now. Yeah. This is good. So if you guys look here, right? Signal. By the way, signals don't have to play off of the straight off the lines. All signals are relative. Don't focus so much on the lines. Focus on the signals. Don't focus on an entry as an ATR. Focus as an entry as the dotted lines. Signal, entry, you're in a trade, right? Signal, scale in, right? Think about this. If this was a good trade for me to enter, why wouldn't I get into this trade if this is also a good trade for an entry? So now you get a scale in opportunity where you entered a trade, it broke another level, had another continuation. So that's why I'm still going to take inside level trades, because that means if I broke a middle level and then we broke a lower level, now I get to scale in. I hit the first trade, now I hit the second trade, double the contracts. That's a pretty fucking nice trade. You guys hear me say it all the time. All right, I'm scaling in. All right, I'm adding in. Not just because I'm a degenerate, because it met the qualifications. If I didn't take this trade, I would probably take this trade. So you have this. Now, yes, I have runners and stuff. We're not going to go into the ATMs, but they work very, very well. Have there been a time where an A++ setup presents itself with a back-to-back gold trim, then immediately reverses? Of course. A++ is still not 100%. I think with the students, we actually lost an A++ trade the other day, but then we caught a banger afterwards. I think our very first trade on Asia Thursday, or lunch it was. We lost an A++ trade. And then we won 2 or 3 trades immediately after that. So I'm never going to be upset. Here's the thing, and again, a little bit more sauce, psychologically. I am so confident in my strategy in the Pivot Hunter that when I take a loss, I am not fazed by it at all. Not fazed by it at all, because I know statistically the next setup will probably hit. Scaling in is when your position is going your way and you add it. And DCA is when you're in losing trade and you, exactly, intellect, correct. What is the criteria for scaling? Pullback? Nope. Just wait for another breaking continuation. You have a runner to scale in, but that trade has a green candle, which validates it. Not anymore. So based off of certain testing and criteria that we've met, that Owen and I have looked into, this is green, but it's technically a doji. TradingView doesn't show dojis. TradingView doesn't show dojis. Tradevate will. This is a doji, which means that there is no buyers or sellers. It's in the middle. This is considered a relevant candle and a strong continuation. What we've also looked into is, let's say that it came down just a little bit and it was a hammer. If it's not too large, right, in the green, it's also still valid for a short continuation. And you'll know because you'll see the dotted lines will still stay there. Are the dots you're talking about breaking through? So in that picture, no, didn't even touch them. I think my problem is the auto break even settings and auto trail settings. Well, that's your personal risk management. I can't help you there. This info is clicking. I love it. Awesome. Great to hear, Intellect. Let's delete that. Making sure I had the right version. Yep. So we've talked about what the ATR is. We talked about the levels. We talked about the dotted lines for continuation. We talked about waiting for a print through on the dotted lines. We talked about a scale in opportunity. Do you recommend stop loss and PT using ATR? I like to use it as reference, definitely. Pivot Hunter works on GC, not just MGC, right? GC and MGC are the same thing. They're just different sizes. Your market structure will look slightly different, but relatively they're very close and very similar. Same thing as NQ and MNQ. I use MNQ depending on my drawdown. I've seen dojis, a bit of body, and trade still works. Exactly, Bubba. That's what we started to incorporate. Owen and I were looking into it, and there's been too many times when a trade was considered invalidated, and you would watch market structure and you'd be like, that's still a good trade. So we wanted to tighten it up a little bit. We've added so much more to this. We've made this indicator essentially dummy proof. You see a signal, you get an alert, you wait for it to print through the dots, you click buy, you click sell. 70% win rate, very high RR. I've used this for Tesla options and banked. Badass indicator. Thank you, Chaos. Yeah. Randy and some other people in here have used it and had a lot of success with options. A lot of success with options because it's showing the momentum. It's showing the breakout momentum and continuation. Can the high alert be programmed to alert only after Pivot Hunter populates so we don't get continuous alerts and high volume candles? Yeah, I mean, you can do it for once. You can do it so it just does it once. You don't have to keep hearing it. You can have it so it just doesn't keep bugging you. Where are we right now? You could have it so it does it just once. You go here, Pivot Hunter, and then you would do like only once or once per bar close or whatever. You could adjust it. Signed up for coaching, looking forward to learning more about ATM settings and managing the trade. Awesome, Trent. I'm going to add you to the student channel immediately after this. Simply pause the alerts when you want to log off for the day. I do that too. Recently, because I get obviously very distracted communicating with the chat and the team and everybody, I wasn't paying attention. And sometimes you guys message it and say, Logan, signal. And I'm like, oh shit. But now I put the alerts on when I'm live trading just so I know as well. Sign up for changing. It'll change your life. Thank you, Spoon. How do I set up alerts? All right, we'll go over it again. Alert here. Create an alert. Price you're going to change to Pivot Hunter. And you have a few different alert options. Breakout, so whenever a signal shows. High volume, if it shoots to yellow. Or from changes to green. So if it drops from high volume to average or it goes from red to average to green. Logan, if you get an A+ setup close to an important level like orb, do you still take it or have to take profit at orb but to skip it? So, Glow, I Ironically enough, we have the power hour because I came up with the power hour orb, 330 to 345. Max is the orb guy. I've learned multiple different orbs. I've come up with 7 different orbs. I don't trade orb anymore. I don't use orb anymore because of that issue. More often than not, when I was using it, I actually had Owen incorporate orbs into the Pivot Hunter, and I made him do a bunch of work only for me to say, scratch it, let's take it off. Because there was just too much confliction. There was too much contradictions in trade setups. Because my concern is this. If I see something like this, right, where I see a solid trade coming in, but I got orb level here, or another level here, or another level here, I'm not going to take the trade down. But the trade clearly worked. So that's why I usually remove it. I just focus on just my Pivot Hunter now. And a lot of the times, the Pivot Hunter will align with those orbs. So they still work very well. How do you set the dotted line to go further right? That doesn't make sense. You wouldn't want it to go further right because it's going with what's marking with the candles now. It does not make any sense to have the dotted lines to the right. Half my ATR is always red. I only have half my ATR is always red. Are you on gold? I don't know what you're talking about. Can you tell me a bit more about ATR, especially for gold? So we can switch to gold, but ATR essentially just means the average size of a candle. Now, normally gold is anywhere between 1 to 3.5, 4, 4.5, usually around 2 to 3.5. But what we saw at the market open yesterday, absolute insanity. And we got up to 7.7, 8.5, 9.2, 10.5. Very, very rare as that happened, but it did, and it was insane. Now, when you see something like this, when the volatility is this high, or even on NQ when it's yellow, just be careful. It's extreme, extreme volatility. It might dump 40 points, rip up 80 points, dump 100 points. Just be aware. Just have solid risk management to prepare yourself for that. The advanced orb is phenomenal. Advanced orb is phenomenal. It's a very, very good. All of our indicators are phenomenal. They're very good. I have no idea what the ATR is. I know you can't share your settings. Can you tell me what that is? Yeah, ATR is average true range. It's the average size candle. Is the gold ATR updated or is Logan still working on it? It's updated. Owen did update it. So it's irrelevant, Chris. For entry points, people don't need to know about that. Basically, the dotted lines will adjust now. Dotted lines will adjust based off ATR. So people don't really need to know why that sets up. Dotted lines will extend a new update. Yep, that trade that Max took Friday morning, that was a 200-point move. That was an A++ setup. I think it was strat 2-3 bar setup he used. Let's see. Friday, was it Friday? Let's see. So I actually I took the gold dump, and I made $7,400 on the gold dump. And I'll show you guys why. This is what I caught on Friday. Thursday, right here. See this? I caught this. Broke, entry, right? I actually sniped that one pretty good. Ripped all the way down. Look at the size of this dump. $7,400 in fucking 2 minutes. $7,400 trade on my alpha funded account. It was beautiful. Is it cool to set ATR to red when it's low? Is there a way to pop in an option for high ATR too? What do you mean? Is it cool to set the ATR to red when it's low? You can't do it on gold because the indicator has to work individually per thing. So Owen would have to go into gold, NQ, ES, YM, platinum. He'd have to individually, it's not practical. So that's the one thing you'll have to pay attention to is on gold. NQ is our main trading platform. It's what we mainly focus on. Coach, I believe last Friday, one of your students mentioned gold entry is half ATR. It was mentioned in the battalion chat. Correct, Baron. And that's what just showed. So this originally, prior to Friday, this would have shown the entry point would have been 1 ATR below. So originally your entry wouldn't have been until down here or something like that. Now, with the adjustment, it's significantly higher. So we've already made that adjustment. Biggest thing I want you guys to remember. You see a signal, you do not enter. You wait for a print through of the dotted lines. The dotted lines disappeared. That means the trade was probably invalid. There's no trade setup. Print through of the dotted line, you're good, right? You're good. You can try and get into it now. In some rare occasions, I don't know if I'm going to find an example, but you might see a situation where you get a signal and it just taps the dotted line. The dotted line will disappear, right? Because it hit the dotted line. What I would do is I would still just wait for the next candle. A print through of the continuation, you're good. Does the indicator auto update? It will not auto update. It's going to update into your system. You're going to see a purple circle. It's going to show up around here. You're going to click that. If it doesn't show up, exit out of TradingView, relog into TradingView. See that circle? Click it. Does coaching include regular Asia trading sessions? I can't say regular, but very, very often. Right now, almost every Asia session, I'm going to be trading with my students. Lunch as well. GC yellow ATR threshold. So we're going to have red at 1 and under, yellow at 4.5 and up. If we can do that. Red at 1 and under. Then it's going to be green from 1.1 to 4.5. and then it's going to be yellow above that. Remember, guys, October 31st, I'm shutting it down. I'm shutting down the entire battalion. It's only going to be access to my students and I. We're going to be locked in trading. Nooners, 12:30 EST. The nooners will be as soon as the morning show ends. I probably got to eat food and I'll pop on, but we're going to trade whenever I get on all the way up until the power hour. And then I'm just going to log off and go into the power hour. So students are going to get like, per day, students will get anywhere between like 4 to 6 to 7 hours with me. Like they get a lot, you guys get a lot of live trading with me. A lot of live trading. Where do you post the times? I don't. It's sporadic, but it's after the morning show and right at Globex Open. I like to trade.